Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. So, hello everyone and welcome to Intro to Buddhism and Meditation. My name is Travis. I'll be facilitating tonight's class. I checked the sound quality this time, so hopefully it's better. So we'll go right into meditation. A few things before we get started. I'll be saying things like breathing in through the eyes and the ears. This is a conceptual exercise to work breath through the body, to kind of work that sensation of relaxation, that sensation of comfort throughout the entire body. So we use perceptual exercises like imagining it going through different areas to be able to consciously relax areas of tension that we might not be sure how to relax, like the tension in the center of the head or in the intestines, something that may seem a little more complicated than relaxing the shoulders or softening the forehead. We can use the breath as this kind of in-between, this go-between, between the tension in areas we can't manually relax. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. In a biological sense, the entire body is involved with the breathing process, so this isn't too much of a stretch. The entire surface of the skin is breathing in through the pores. Oxygen flows through the body, animating nerves and blood vessels. So the breathing process is a whole body process. So we're just tapping into this process, sensitizing ourselves to it to create a sturdy foundation within this moment. So with that, we'll get started. Closing the eyes and taking 3 deep breaths slowly. Noticing if deep breathing feels good. And if it does, you can keep on breathing in this way. If it doesn't, you can switch things up. Either consciously experimenting with different rhythms and textures of breath, maybe even deeper still or more shallow, heavier or lighter. In long and out short, or in short and out long. To find what feels best for the body in this moment. Or you can simply pose the question in the mind as to what type of breath would feel the most calming or the most energizing in this moment. and watch how the breath responds. Once you've found a rhythm of breath that does feel good, just stay with it for a while. If the mind wanders off, that's okay. Recognize it and gently return to the breath, relaxing any tension in the forehead or the shoulders as you do so. As you remain aware of the breathing process, you can gently guide your awareness and focus down into the stomach. And as you follow the breath here, notice if there's any patterns of tension or tightness. And see if you can imagine the breath flowing through the tension, dissolving it away all the way through the in-breath, and keeping it relaxed all the way through the out-breath. If you want, you can imagine the breath coming in and out right there at the stomach. So you don't have to push or pull it from anywhere else. with tension in the abdomen relaxed, gently raising our awareness and focus up to the center of the chest and the area around the heart. Repeating the same process here. Noticing how breathing feels in this part of the body. Changing it up if needed. Noticing any sense of tension or constriction in the chest. And using the breath to soothe it, to dissolve it away. Breathing in, imagining the breath coming in straight through the heart, soothing the heart. Breathing out, it radiates out, opening the chest. I like to maintain a gentle smile as I'm relaxing the chest and the heart. Breathing in, soothing the heart. Breathing out, opening the chest. With the heart spacious and relaxed, gently raising our awareness up to the neck and shoulders. Breathing in, soothing the neck, opening the airways. Breathing out, relaxing the shoulders. with the neck and shoulders relaxed, gently raising our awareness up to the center of the head. And as you breathe in here, you can imagine the breath coming in not only through the nose, but in through the eyes and the ears, in from the back of the head, down through the top of the head, gently flowing deep into the brain, relaxing mental tension. And as you breathe out, you can imagine the breath radiating out from the center of the head in all directions, dissolving tension in the scalp and the forehead, in the area around the eyes, in the jaw. When the breath energy in the head feels spacious and relaxed, you can allow awareness and breath to spread down to fill the entire body. Down the arms as you breathe in, Radiating out the arms and hands as you breathe out, dissolving tension. Down the spine as you breathe in, lengthening the spine. Radiating out from the spine as you breathe out, soothing tension in the back. Breathing in, imagining the breath coming in through the tailbone, flowing down the legs. Breathing out, the breath radiates out from the legs and feet, dissolving tension. And that's one cycle through the body. If you're using this method on your own, you'd go through the body several times until the mind really started to settle. But for our purposes tonight, we'll move on to the next step, which is to take all these areas that we focused on for this past session and connect them all together so that we're aware of the entire body as we breathe in, and we're calming the entire body as we breathe out. A good way to go about this is to pick any area you found it easiest to maintain focus and a sense of ease, and to make that the center point of your awareness, allowing the periphery of your awareness to spread out to fill the entire body. So it's this broad but centered awareness, like a candle flame in a dark room. Before you leave this meditation, reflect back on this past session, calling to mind any time you felt especially settled or focused, especially at ease. And then reflect back on what you were doing just prior to that. Where were you focused? How was the breath? Noticing what the causes were to that effect of ease. In this way, we can become more familiar with how to get the mind focused, learning what works and what doesn't. And with that thought in mind, you can slowly begin to open the eyes, stretch if necessary. Never in a rush to leave the meditation. So, I don't necessarily have a topic for tonight. I'll spend the next few minutes talking about kind of the purpose or the idea behind this style of meditation. But it would be very helpful if you have a question or even a suggestion for a topic. If you could type that in the description box or in the live chat, so that I can just kind of pick from that. That way I know kind of what's on your mind, what you'd like to know about, and then base whatever talk I give around that. Would be very helpful. Thank you. So with this style of meditation, the reason we're trying to work up to a full body, this full-bodied awareness, is that when things happen to us, when things that we don't like happen to us, before we have a mental judgment of it or an opinion about it, there's this preemptive reaction by the body, this pattern of tension throughout the body. So we see something that we don't like, and for each of us, there's this very specific pattern of tension that corresponds to when we see something that makes us angry, or when we hear something that makes us angry, or when we hear something that makes us scared or sad or whatever it may be. We have these specific patterns of tension in the body. It's different person to person. But the interesting thing is, not only do these patterns of tension arise from a stimuli outside, but these patterns of tension can arise within during the meditation, and then give rise to anger or sadness or fear or whatever it may be. So when we're cultivating this full-bodied awareness, we can notice these patterns of tension just as they're starting to sprout, as opposed to only becoming aware of them once they bloom into an unpleasant emotion. So we're able to notice when they start to sprout and from where in the body they're sprouting from. And by consciously relaxing that part of the body, it's like uprooting that pattern of tension or uprooting that unpleasant mind state before it actually becomes a mind state. So instead of trying to battle everything up in the head, wrestle with thoughts, wrestle with emotions, to get out of the head, we get into the body. So by noticing how patterns of tension in the body correspond to our mind states, we're able to undo the pattern of tension and thereby undo the unpleasant mind state. So that's kind of the intention and purpose behind this style of meditation. Just becoming more familiar with our body's response to stimuli and being able to kind of hijack that process for our own means, creating patterns of pleasant awareness that give rise to pleasant mind states. So this style of meditation, it does kind of have a name. It's called Ajahn Lee's Method 2, the way that I lead it, at least, the way that I guide it. Ajahn Lee was a great forest master in the wilderness tradition of Thailand. So this style of meditation kind of comes from him, but it could also be considered a mindfulness of body meditation. Because when the Buddha taught the Anapanasati Sutta, the discourse on the mindfulness of breathing, he listed 16 steps. And the first 4 of those steps are kind of what this meditation goes through. Breathing in or out long, aware that you're breathing in and out long. Breathing in and out short, aware that you're breathing in and out short. Breathing in and out, aware of the entire body. Breathing in and out, calming the entire body. So those first 4 steps of the 16 that the Buddha gave is kind of what this technique and this method stems from. So I could talk a little bit about the 3 characteristics: dukkha, anicca, and anatta. So dukkha is what's always translated as suffering. It's kind of a limiting translation. I prefer stress or unsatisfactoriness, because dukkha is everything from like heart-crushing suffering all the way down to that little lingering feeling in the back of the head that something's just not quite right. So dukkha is a really wide range, as it usually is with Pali words, which is ancient Indian. There's a lot of meaning behind each word, and it's hard to translate them into English, because the English language is pretty limited compared to these older languages. So dukkha is this wide range. So the way the 3 characteristics are phrased, they're often referred to as kind of statements about reality or facts about reality, in a sense. The way that my teacher refers to them is not as blanket statements, but as useful perceptions. So that's how I'll be talking about them. So dukkha, suffering, stress, dissatisfaction, unsatisfactoriness. Anicca, impermanence, all things are subject to change. And anatta, things are without a permanent self, permanent unchanging self. So dukkha, anicca, anatta. So how are these useful? Because that's an important thing to kind of look at. Because if we just leave them at statements, but we don't actually explore them or work with them, they're not that useful. So in what way are they useful, right? So dukkha is useful in a few ways. And for me, in terms of a perception, it's useful to recognize that these perceptions or these characteristics were singled out because they apply to everyone. No one's completely free from them, except for someone who's completely free from everything. But the vast majority of people aren't free from them. So when I'm experiencing suffering or stress, it can be helpful to remember that I'm not alone. And it's helpful to remember that because things tend to be inherently stressful, they're inherently stressful because they're subject to change. So something that's subject to change and stressful, why would I want to identify with that? And that's kind of where anatta comes in. So things are impermanent, and therefore trying to find pleasure in things that are impermanent or find a sense of self in things that are impermanent is very stressful. So because things are impermanent and stressful, when you use those perceptions in that way, you can then choose not to identify with them, not to cling on to them so heavily, not to consider them an essential part of who you are, an essential part of your life. This could be anything from material possessions to our own faculties of mind. As we get older, again, impermanence, some of our faculties tend to fade. And we can either get really upset about that or really stressed out about that, or we can acknowledge that that's an inherent part of life. Jara namohi jarang natito. I am subject to aging. Aging is unavoidable, or aging is natural. So we can use these perceptions as they are necessary, right? So, for example, they're not something that you use all of the time when you're trying to motivate yourself. So say we have some dishes in the sink, right? Just saying, well, those dishes are impermanent. Eventually they'll be dust. Those dishes don't really exist. They have no inherent nature, so there's no need to clean them, right? Cleaning the dishes would just be stressful, so why should I bother? And then mundane things that need to be done pile up. And often these characteristics, when they're taught as kind of inherent statements of reality, can lead to a lot of spiritual bypassing, a lot of laziness. But when they're taught as perceptions that are useful at certain times and places and in certain ways, that's a better way of looking at it. When working with these characteristics of unsatisfactoriness, impermanence, and not self, it's always important to ask yourself if those perceptions are actually useful for what you're exploring, useful for lessening our craving, our greed, our anger, our ignorance, or do they just promote laziness? Yeah. So Lizzie asked, did Buddha have any teachings or words on regret? Yes. So regret is included within something that the Buddha called the 5 hindrances. So you have sensory passion, which is the obsessive planning and fantasizing about fulfilling sense pleasures. It's not the fulfillment of the sense pleasure itself. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's the obsessive, neurotic fantasizing about it. So that's the first one, sensory passion. And then ill will. Ill will is wishing for another being to suffer. That one's pretty straightforward. Then there's laziness and lethargy, or sloth and torpor, which is either physical or mental drowsiness and dullness. And then there's anxiety and remorse, or anxiety and regret. And then the last one's uncertainty or self-doubt. So the Buddha taught these within that framework of the 5 hindrances and stated that pretty much any unpleasant emotion or unpleasant mind state that we find ourselves in is either one or a mix of these 5 hindrances. So I find these hindrances really helpful because and I highly recommend reading the sutras, if you read some of the sutras about the hindrances, the Buddha gives solutions or antidotes to a lot of these hindrances, right? So it's helpful when we have something unpleasant come up or something unskillful come up to keep in mind these 5 hindrances and ask ourselves, it feels unpleasant, so it's most likely a hindrance. What hindrance is it? And when we can identify which one or multiple hindrances that this emotion is that comes up, we're able to figure out how to go about fixing that, or how to go about, I don't want to say fix, but resolving that. So with remorse or regret, one of the best antidotes, in my opinion, and I may be a little biased, is forgiveness meditation. And forgiveness meditation, within my own practice, within my own opinion, is one of the most powerful meditations that you can do. And within my own practice, it's been the most transformative meditation. It's able of bringing to the surface old unresolved issues and states of mind and giving them a platform to resolve themselves, giving them the space necessary for them to work themselves out simply by us being aware of and allowing them to exist. Not gripping on, trying to crush it, not pushing it away, but just allowing it. If you would like to do a forgiveness meditation, there is a guided forgiveness meditation on this YouTube channel. If you go to our page and go to playlist, there's a guided meditation playlist, and the forgiveness meditation is on that. Highly recommended if you struggle with regret or remorse. Any other questions? So Len asked, how do you decide when to use a guided meditation and when to do a silent meditation? So there's no concrete answer on that. What I will say is guided meditations are really good for beginning to learn a method of meditation, right? So learning the instruction, learning some of the nuance of that style of meditation. But the real transformation, at least in my opinion, comes when you've kind of internalized that method of meditation and then you begin doing it on your own. So it's important to learn the ideology or the methodology behind different styles of meditation to be able to do them, right? But I just always caution to be careful of not letting guided meditation become a crutch for the meditation practice, because it's important to develop a sense of ingenuity or creativity with the meditation, to learn what kind of perceptions work for you, what kind of methods work for you personally. And if we're always just rigidly following guided meditations, it doesn't give us a lot of room for play. So guided meditations are useful for when you're learning a method of meditation. And they're useful on days where if you didn't listen to a guided meditation, you just wouldn't meditate. So I meditate typically at least twice a day. Sometimes that second time a day is right now during the class, but at least twice a day. And every once in a while, or if I'm really just feeling like I'm not going to meditate, I'll listen to a guided meditation. It's kind of like having a little bit of dessert with your meditation. It's much more enjoyable for me personally than a silent meditation. But I acknowledge that the silent meditation is actually more beneficial if we can maintain it regularly. So do both, but notice that there's a lot more room for play with silent meditation. So with 5 minutes left, Marisa asked, what is a jhana? Well, so within Buddhist practice, typically within the Theravada tradition of Buddhism, which is the school of Buddhism that I follow most closely, there's something called jhanas, right? And I won't talk about, there's like 8 of them, and I shouldn't even have said that. Don't go Google them. It's not worth it. The only one that I think anyone practicing should be concerned with at all is the first one. So I'll talk a little bit about the first jhana. All right. So what is a jhana? A jhana is a state of meditation, a deep state of meditation, when subject and object become one thing instead of 2 things, right? So subject is us, our awareness. Object in most cases is either the breath or loving kindness, right? And within a meditation practice, there's always this sense of there's us as the observer, and then there's the breath. So jhana is an intense state of focus where us as the observer and the breath settle down so much that they're perceived as being one thing. In a sense, the observer kind of drops away and breath and awareness become one. And this is a state of meditation that's fairly challenging to learn how to give rise to. And it's one that experiencing it spontaneously doesn't really matter that much. A lot of people will have some kind of jhana experience, some kind of feeling rapture and pleasure flowing through the body and just being very focused and very at peace. They'll have a sense of this. And then their practice becomes very narrow focused on trying to give rise to it again or trying to obsessively pursue it again, which is incredibly counterproductive because the jhana only arises when there's an absence of craving. When for a moment or two, because we've settled down with the breath so much, because the breath itself or the object of meditation itself is so fulfilling that the craving drops away because it's actually being fulfilled from within, right? So then when you have this kind of experience and you assign all of this meaning to it, and then you try to intensely pursue it again, it's never going to happen again because you're trying to intensely pursue it. So the only thing we can do in terms of learning about the jhanas is to, one, focus only on the first one if you are going to go Google it. Don't read the other ones. They're more confusing, less helpful. And you have to go through one to get to the next one, so just focus on the first one. But the first jhana has causes. So those causes are directed thought, evaluation, and singleness of preoccupation. So directed thought means directing our thoughts towards the breath. thinking thoughts only related about the breath. This doesn't mean not thinking at all and just focusing on the breath. It means that the content of our thoughts have to do with the breath. Evaluation is evaluating the breath. Again, not just not thinking, but you're using this thinking about the breath and you're evaluating it. You're learning how to breathe in a way that causes a sense of ease, that relaxes the body, that's enjoyable for the body. Everything that we just did in this style of meditation we did at the beginning. And then you have singleness of preoccupation. And that basically means that for the time being, we've dropped other preoccupation. We've dropped thinking about anything else, and we're just staying here with the breath or here with the object of meditation. And if all three of those causes are maintained for a long enough period of time, a jhana will arise. So you can't force a jhana, you can only maintain the causes of it. And then the effects of the first jhana are rapture and pleasure. So rapture is a sense of full-bodiedness, the breath being fully embodied. And pleasure is the sense of ease and the tingly and the goodness that comes from that full body embodiment, full breath embodiment. So that's pretty much a jhana. They're useful because they get the mind so settled down, so calm, and they create a sense of food for the mind within, so that we're less likely to try to fulfill that need outside. Because when we feed outside, we feed on things that are impermanent, stressful, and not self. So when we direct our awareness inside, find a sense of food for the mind inside, we're more stable, we're more trustworthy as a person, we're more at ease, because we have everything we need right here. So that's pretty much a jhana. Yeah. We will close on that because we are at time. Again, please don't go Google all 8 of them. If you do have to Google them, just Google the first one. All that matters is those 3 causes: directed thought, evaluation, singleness of preoccupation. Okay, so we'll close. If comfortable, please join palms. May any merit gained from this meditation and discussion be dedicated to all those who suffer at this time. May all beings in all directions, without limit or end, be healthy, joyful, and at ease. May we all be healthy, joyful, and at ease. Metta karuna mudita upekha sangha teya cetasa chaturisam bharatva viharati Sambhavanarupavena, Sambhadhammarupavena, Sambhasangarupavena, Sote Hantu Nirantaram. A few quick announcements before we head out. So my name's Travis, I'm a Dharma bum. No, I don't know the whole thing. But so we're doing online classes pretty much almost every night of the week. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights at 7 p.m. we have online classes going. Tuesday nights typically Jeff with Intro to Buddhism and Meditation. Wednesday night at 7 is Alex with Loving Kindness Meditation. Thursday night at 7 is me with Dharma Bum Basics. And then Saturday at 11 is Jeff with Intro to Buddhism and Meditation. We're starting the Day of Silence back up again, the half day of silence retreat. That will be live via Zoom. We'll have periods of silent meditation. There will be a walking period, cleaning period, all that good stuff. All of that kind of Zoom information is on our website. And we have recovery meetings pretty much every night of the week. I almost said downstairs, but we have them pretty much every night of the week through Zoom. That's all on the website too. And then starting next Tuesday, most likely next Tuesday, we'll be resuming afternoon meditation and Dharma talk, or afternoon meditation and Dharma talk with Natalie. So we'll be doing that via Zoom. We'll watch a video through Zoom and then have a discussion about it. Details on that to be announced shortly. I think that's it. So thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your night.